The term circus was frequently used to describe the New York Jets in 2012. It really all started with their acquisition of quarterback Tim Tebow via trade last offseason from the Denver Broncos. You see, most people thought the Jets already had a quarterback plan in place. They had just given Mark Sanchez a lucrative contract extension. And so to bring in Tebow, who at the time was the most popular player in the NFL, a lot of people thought that was just a needless distraction. And it turns out that's just what it was. The Jets barely used Tebow. He only saw the field for 70-some-odd offensive plays, nearly all of those out of the Wildcat formation. And when Sanchez was eventually benched because he had the worst season of his career, Tebow was bypassed, and Greg McElroy, who had been the third-string quarterback, the seventh-round pick out of Alabama in 2011, he was given the reins of the offense for a brief time. So the season's over now. All that remains is the wreckage. Rex Ryan somehow survived. Tony Sparano, offensive coordinator, was fired. Mike Tannenbaum, the general manager, the man who put together this team, the man responsible for the Tebow trade and the Sanchez contract extension, he was also fired, replaced by John Idzik, who comes from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization. But, you know, the Tebow trade got a lot of press, a lot of negative press for Tannenbaum, but it was really the Sanchez contract extension that probably got him fired. Mark Sanchez had a terrible year in 2012, was a big reason the Jets were 6-10. They finished 30th in the league in total offense, 30th in passing offense. Sanchez ranked 31st in quarterback rating with a 66.9 rating. 18 interceptions. Mark Sanchez has led the NFL in turnovers over the last 2 years. Obviously, that is not the formula of a winner. Yet, because of that contract extension we mentioned, he is due to make $8.25 million in fully guaranteed money in 2013. That basically makes him untradeable. It means the Jets are stuck with him. So Sanchez will be their quarterback most likely next season. Now, they're going to bring in some competition to compete with Sanchez, and it's most likely not going to be Tim Tebow, who's either going to be traded or released. They've been working out David Garrard over the last few days, a veteran quarterback who spent most of his career in Jacksonville. He was with the Miami Dolphins last year before getting injured. And they might bring in somebody through the draft, even though the rookie crop of quarterbacks, the draft-eligible crop of quarterbacks, is not said to be as strong as years past. There's not thought to be a consensus top 10 selection among this year's crop of quarterbacks. So will the Jets be able to find a rookie to instantly impact the offense? It seems unlikely at this time, and the Jets are in a unique situation because even though it's a period of transition with Idzik taking over as general manager and beginning to reshape the roster, because Rex Ryan wasn't fired, because he's a holdover, he's under intense pressure to win now. So the Jets are still in win now mode, even though they've sort of remade the front office. It makes for an interesting dynamic because in a lot of situations like this, the team might draft a quarterback maybe early in the second round. The Jets have the 8th pick in the second round, the 9th pick in the first round, and might look to get that guy in there and might look to get him some playing time while undergoing a rebuild, similar to what, say, the Cleveland Browns did with Brandon Weeden last year, or the Miami Dolphins with Ryan Tannehill. I know those guys were drafted in the first round, but those guys were put out there even though they might not have been the best option at the time for winning football games because the franchises knew they were undergoing a rebuilding process and they wanted to get those young guys some playing time. That's not the case with the New York Jets because Rex Ryan, as we said, under pressure to win now. So will it be Sanchez next year? Will it be a guy like David Garrard? They don't have many options because they're in a tough spot with the salary cap. The Jets were way over the cap before they released a few high-priced veterans a few weeks ago. Linebacker Bart Scott, Calvin Pace, another veteran linebacker, safety Eric Smith, and offensive tackle Jason Smith, who they acquired from the St. Louis Rams last year, who was seldom used. But all those guys were released. That freed up about $32 million of cap space, but even after that, they were slated to be so far over the cap, they still only have about $6 million in room under the cap. So if they're going to do anything in free agency, it's going to be with some relatively low-price free agents, guys like David Garrard. And as we said, they will look to add some guys in the draft, both at the quarterback position and elsewhere, because no matter who they go with at quarterback, no matter what they decide on there, they have to surround him with better talent at the skill position. After Santonio Holmes, wide receiver Santonio Holmes, was injured last year, the Jets' collection of skill position players was abysmal. And some of those guys are unrestricted free agents. Running back Sean Green, Tight end Dustin Keller, who might be a guy the Jets look to re-sign. But they need to add some wide receivers. Holmes will be coming back this next year. That's good news, no doubt about it. But to me, the Jets need to add a veteran, polished wide receiver. Obviously, as we mentioned, they're going to have to go the low-price option. Think somebody like Jabbar Gaffney, a guy who's been through the league with several teams. If they could just add somebody like that, somebody who knows what he's doing, I'm just not sure going the rookie route to address the wide receiver problem is a good idea for the Jets, as we saw last year with their pick of Stephen Hill late in the first round. Hill, while he has great athleticism, size, speed, and that's, after all, why Mike Tannenbaum decided to draft him. He was extremely raw last season. After all, came out of an option offense in Georgia Tech. So he was even probably more unpolished than most wide receivers coming out of college. But after Holmes went down, Stephen Hill was asked at times to be the number one wide receiver. It didn't really work out. He missed several games due to injury. And Mark Sanchez really dealt a bad hand, even though he didn't do much with that hand. As we said, he had the worst season of his career. But the Jets, they really have to upgrade this offense. They're in pretty good shape on defense, even though they had to let go of Bart Scott, Calvin Pace, and Eric Smith, like we said. 8th in the NFL in total defense last year. 2nd in pass defense, even though they lost Darrelle Revis, the best player certainly in that secondary, maybe the best player on the entire defense. They lost him in week 3 to an ACL tear. And because the secondary did so well without Revis, that's made Revis look sort of expendable now, and there's a lot of talk in recent days that he might be traded around draft time, so keep an eye on that. John Idzik has been very non-committal when talking about Darrelle Revis publicly. And the good play of the defense is probably why Rex Ryan was able to hang on to his job for another year. After all, Ryan is a defensive guy, and his players on that side of the ball still seem to be responding to him. So the Jets should have a good defense again next year. Wouldn't be surprised to see them add a player or two in the draft. We know how Rex Ryan loves drafting those defensive guys like Quentin Coples, who they got last year in the first round. But as we said, they need to fix this offense. They need to add some pieces, both in the draft and probably through free agency. They need to figure out what they're doing at the quarterback position. I guess Jets fans can hope that it can improve from the circus that it was in 2012.